Hello YouTube, once again, my name is James Wiggins and welcome to my YouTube channel. Last night we had a really good turnout for our youth, and I would like to talk about a subject that came up a couple times. And in religion, it's easy to clarify somebody as good, these people are good and these people are bad. But in Christianity, it's not that simple, and I'd like to point out a parable of Jesus's that kind of illustrates that good and bad is not so simple. Why? Because there's only one judge, and the Bible says, no one is good, no, not one. So we have to apply that to ourselves as well. It's one of the reasons we're called not to judge others, because we are imperfect judges. So in the Bible, there's a story of the parable of the talents, and it's told by Jesus, and the whole story revolves around the master. And the master leaves, and when he leaves his house, he gives 3 servants rule over the entire estate. And he tells them, okay, when I come back, I want to see what you've done with what I've entrusted you. And we can easily parallel this with our own lives. God's given us all different abilities, different resources, and we have to pull from those to see how we can better grow in this Christian world. And not everybody's born into the world with the same amount of talents. No one's truly equal in what they have given to them, not in wealth, not in ability or intelligence or in appearance. We all fall at different places on the scale. Some of us may succeed in one area while we fail at another, or we're weak, we're strong in another place. And that's just how life is. So the story ends up with the master leaving, and when he comes back, he finds out that the person he gave 5 talents made 5 more. So he doubled what he had been left with. The person who had 2 talents ended up having 4, and he doubled what he was left with. But the person who was left 1 talent, when he came back, that person still had that 1 talent. And his excuse was that the money wasn't his, and he was scared of what would happen if he lost that 1 coin, or if he lost money of the investment, trying to invest it in different places, and he knew that the master would be mad. So I compare this to us, and we don't do anything with the talents that God gives us. We sit there and we squander our abilities. Maybe we're good at public speaking, and instead of going out and taking a leadership position somewhere in government or as a teacher or at your church, instead we just don't use it at all. Or maybe you're good at math, but you don't use it and go into engineering or a different field. Or maybe you have wealth and you don't spend that wealth helping the poor. There's a lot of different ways we can not use our talents. But when we go back to this idea of who is good and who is bad, this is where this parable comes in. So let's switch up what happened a little bit. Let's just say that when the master came back to his estate, that the person with 5 talents, instead of having 10, still had 5. The person who had 2 talents, instead of having 4, just had 2 talents. But the person with 1 talent had 2. How would it have played out? Which person would have been thrown out with weeping and gnashing of teeth? I think it would have been the person with 5 talents, the person with 2 talents, rather than the person with 1 talent. So let's apply that to our modern life and where we all sit at here today. Now, I consider myself a person who was born into the world with a good amount of talents. So I'm not saying talents as in I'm really good at doing things, but I really had a good start. My parents were Christian parents who instilled in me great values and the value of life and of self-esteem and all these other things. And I did not grow up wanting for anything. So for all purposes of this metaphor, I'll say I had 5 talents. Now, if I squander my talents, if I don't make anything of what was been given to me, and say I just am a good person, and I'm satisfied, I'm like, yeah, I don't do these things that society said was bad, and I just get by on, having a good personality and being likable, and I just want to make it till the end, and and get through this life. And I don't really grow, because growth would mean change, and I already consider myself a good person. So that change seems a little bit unnecessary if you're already what you think society standard says this is a good person. Now compare that to a person who's born in with maybe one talent. Maybe they were born into poverty where they all they had to wear were hand-me-downs, or stuff that without brand names, things that people judge you for your appearance for. Maybe they didn't have food to eat regularly and they grew up a little hungry. And being impoverished and maybe not being around the best of examples, they grew up with a skewed sense of morality and what was right and what was wrong. Maybe they stole to increase the amount of things that they had, maybe to eat, or maybe the things that they wore. And one day, one of their friends takes them to church, and they decide that they want to follow Jesus. Now, we're all works in progress, right? And nobody changes immediately. Nobody changes just like that. But this person slowly and slowly and slowly begins to build a little bit. And that one talent they were born with becomes 2 talents. Maybe even becomes 3 talents or 4 talents. But if you looked at their life, we would judge that they still weren't as good as the person born with 5. But if we take what the message of the story was, it wasn't about how many talents each person had. It was about what they did with them. It was about how much growth was made. And we have to look at our own life, and we have to say, how much growth have we had as individuals? How much growth have I made, who was born very privileged with parents that loved me and a good head start on the rest of the world maybe? And what have I done with it? What do I have to show for being blessed? Now, this person, if we're really going by what this parable says, may even have shown more growth as a Christian, even though where they're at is still not equal from the eyes of society to where this other person was. They've grown closer and gone further in their life than I have. And I think that is a good way to look at the parable of the talents. It kind of switches it on its head, because in the original story, the person with 5 made 10, and the 2 made 4, and the person with 1 kept that 1. And the Bible talks about to whom much is given, much is expected. But we have to understand that if you do have a lot of talents, you are expected a lot of. There's a lot expected of you. So what have you been doing with what God has given you? What have you been doing with the blessings that God has placed in your way, with the people who He's put together into your life that keeps you from being hungry, keeps clothes on your back, that takes you to good schools and takes you to play sports on traveling teams, or all this stuff? What have we done with that? Are we making the most of what has been put in our way? And do we look down on people who are just trying to do their best, who have that 1 talent or those 2 talents, and they're doubling it or even tripling it, but we still look down on them because they're not at that societal level that we are? And I don't think that's really a fair or accurate way of looking at Christian growth and what it means to be a follower of Christ and to grow closer to God. Who is God going to be more satisfied with? Who is God going to be happier with when He comes to see what has been made of the blessings that He's been given? In my mind, it's the person who makes the most of their lot at life, of the cards that they were dealt. And I think that is the person that God will say, "Good job, well done, my good and faithful servant." And it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary to look at your own life and say, hey, my 5 talents, I feel like I'm still sitting with about 5 talents in my pocket. And the masters could come at any time to check at what you've done with what's been given to you. And we have to decide what we need to do to take that next step in our faith, to go and go that extra mile, or, to just show where our growth is at. So that's pretty much my lesson on the talents. And I think that's a really good thing for us to think about when we're looking around at the world and trying to judge our lot in life. The real judgment should be on growth and how much we have achieved and how much closer we've gotten to God, or to what God wants for our lives, and how in line we are with God's will for us. Maybe this person doesn't speak the right way, or dress the right way, or go to church every Sunday, but 2 times a month is more than 0, which they used to be at. And we always have to continue doing that growth, looking for that way to up our game in our Christian walk. So I would like to thank everyone who came out to our worship services last night. We had a really good turnout. I told Tucker I would give him a shout out, so there you go, Tuck. Also, Maddie, Macy, and Tuck, you're looking at the champ of tag from last night. Also, prayer list wise, we're still going to have Riley Meadows' grandfather on our prayer list, and Mr. Randy Bowen with his recovery from his surgery and all the health issues that he's going through right now, Anna Claire Strep and Madeline Elks' knee issues. Also looking forward to Youth Sunday. So I know Harley's studying up for her lesson for Youth Sunday. But there's my phone. Anyways, you guys have a good one. I'll talk to you later.